everyone. Welcome. My name's Lydia Rouse. I work for Tusk. I've been working for Tusk for about 3 years, but I actually just moved here from Kenya, so this is my second week in New York. On behalf of my colleagues at Tusk and everyone at Diane's Books, we're so happy to be co-hosting this event, this launch of Chizi's Tale, the true story of an orphan baby black rhino. We're so lucky to have the Wenham family and Jackie Taylor here, the illustrator of the book. They're visiting all the way from Zimbabwe, and I know they're really excited to meet all of you here today. But first, we have the author of Chizi's Tale, Jack Jones.
Good afternoon, welcome. Did you know that rhinos are this wide and this tall? And if they were here right now, with their huge hearts, they would be thanking each and every one of you for helping save them from extinction and live a safe and happy life. Unfortunately, they couldn't make the party, but in their place, I want to thank you for coming today and for reading the book I wrote, Chizi's Tale, the true story of an orphan black rhino. This story began August 22nd, 2013. My good friend Colin Wenham discovered an abandoned, day-old baby black rhino in Zimbabwe, a country located in southern Africa. After unsuccessfully trying to reunite it with its mother, Colin took the baby home. Because it was a baby, it needed to be bottle-fed milk all day and all night. To accomplish this demanding task, Colin enlisted his wife Annie and his 3 children to help. Together, they named the baby Chizi-bration, which means orphaned one in the local dialect. They nicknamed him Chizi. From the time Colin introduced Chizi to his new family and home, his wife Annie began sending me a photo journal of Chizi's progress. Her emails were literally the highlight of my week. For even though Chizi was a black rhino, he exhibited almost all of the characteristics of a human baby. He wanted to be hugged, he wanted to nap, he did not want to be left alone, and he desperately wanted to suck on someone's thumb when the lights went out. I've been fortunate enough to go to Africa every year since I was 6 months old, and I've seen as many wild animal encounters as one could see on the Discovery Channel in a year. However, nothing prepared me for the emotional impact Chizi's almost human qualities had on me. Eagerly reading through Annie's weekly photo journals and witnessing Chizi grow month by month, I almost began to believe that Chizi was my little brother. And that's when it dawned on me that this story had to be shared with others. Black rhino populations have crashed from 65,000 in 1970 to fewer than 5,000 today. At this rate, they'll be extinct within our lifetime if we do not do something to stop it. These majestic creatures are killed by heartless poachers who only care about the money that they can get from selling the rhino's horn, which can be as much as $250,000. Now let me ask you a question. Would the poachers kill these animals, or the consumers buy products from the rhino's horns, if they knew just how much like humans rhinos really are? I don't think so either. That is really the intention of this book, to inform people just how warm and tender these fearsome-looking animals really are, and to educate people through a listing of facts in the back of the book about the black rhino. Hopefully this book will accomplish 2 purposes. First, it will help raise money to save the black rhinos. All proceeds from the sales of the book will be donated to Tusk. Tusk is an English-based non-profit dedicated to saving and preserving black rhinos as well as other endangered animals like elephants. Second, and more importantly, hopefully this book will be a clarion call to everyone that on our watch we are in danger of losing one of Earth's most iconic animals. And I desperately don't want that to happen. So please join me in this struggle. If you have any questions, please go to my website, chizistale.com. Thank you for coming today and have a great afternoon. And now I'm honored and pleased to introduce the Executive Director of Tusk USA, Ellen
Thank you, Jack. And I'd like to thank Diane's Bookstore, also in the Tudor Jones family, for hosting this event. It's really fantastic, and it's wonderful of all of you to make it here. Jack was spectacular. He really is such an example to you kids on ways that you can really get involved in the work that we're doing and help to save animals like the rhino. The only thing that I would say that is missing from Jack's speech is a tusk hat. So I'm the executive director of Tusk in the US. When Tusk was launched in 1990, 100,000 elephants a year were being poached and killed, and the black rhino was heading towards extinction. In the next 20 years, there was a lot of progress made and a lot of animals' lives were saved. And today, unfortunately, poaching again is out of control throughout Africa, and the elephant and the rhino populations that survived the last crisis are now being wiped out. Tusk remains at the forefront of these efforts to tackle the illegal wildlife trade, and the charity continues to provide substantial funding for anti-poaching efforts. This book will really go a long way to help us both in funding and also advocacy for this work. So Tusk, I think, is a really unique organization. We're small, we're streamlined, and we're efficient. 85% or more of the funding goes into the field. We spend as little as possible on administration. And our approach to conservation recognizes that the long-term future for wildlife in Africa, other natural resources, is dependent on sustainable development. And so we work in communities, we invest in education for children, and we invest directly in wildlife. So your support today is just fantastic. We have a table over there with additional information for Tusk. We also have a table where if you want to try to do something like Jack has been doing, is we have postcards that you can send to Governor Christie, Governor Cuomo, Prince William, David Beckham, Yao Ming, Dave Matthews, to thank them for the enormous work that they're doing on the illegal wildlife and poaching crisis. So that's today, we have here, as Jack mentioned, the Wenham family who raised the baby rhino. And I have to say, when I was in Africa recently and there were 3 baby rhinos that I met, my daughter was furious that we couldn't bring home a baby rhino. So I think she's probably very jealous. She's in the audience somewhere today, very jealous of the Wenham family. So I'm going to introduce Annie Wenham, who will introduce her family and tell you a little bit about their experience raising a rhino in their kitchen.
Thank you. Hi guys, are you all having fun? Are you enjoying yourselves? I'm Annie, and that's my husband Colin. And next to him is Chrissy. She's 9 and she's in grade 4. And then that's Scotty. He's 7 and he's in grade 2. And next to him is little Murray, who's 4 years old. So I want to tell you about when we first saw Chizi. The scouts called us and we came across this tiny little black rhino. He was thin, weak, dehydrated, and he could hardly stand up. From that very moment, we fell in love with him, and we just wanted to care for this tiny baby. It took him a few days to get strong. He drank milk, and he got stronger, and then he thought he was part of the family. He thought he had 2 brothers and 1 sister. And everywhere that these guys went, he wanted to be with them. Every moment, he wanted to be there. Scott would lie on the lawn, and Chizi would come up to him and nudge him, and Scott would roll over, and Chizi would nudge him again until Scott lay still, and then Chizi would lie down next to him so that he could cuddle him. Chizi just loved to be next to somebody, cuddling them or feeling them or smelling them. Now, having a baby rhino in the house doesn't come without challenges, and our biggest problem was the peeing story. You know, he's drinking milk all day long. It's got to come out. So, if he was in the house, we had a little blue bucket that we kept in the house. And if anybody saw him doing the peeing ritual, something he would do just before he peed, they would have to run for the buckets and put it under him. So this is what he did. He would go along and he would sniff the ground, and then he would do a turn like this, and then he would bend his back legs. And then we knew we were in trouble if we didn't have the bucket nearby. So we'd put the bucket under his legs, and we would catch the pee. And you know how long he peed for? Longer than a minute, non-stop. That was a problem. Anyway, Chizi, just like a kid, sometimes you don't want to go to school. Is that right? Some days you don't feel like going to school. Well, Chizi didn't always want to go for his walk with the scouts into the bush to go and eat leaves. And he just wanted to be with the kids at home. So he would refuse. The scouts would call him and he would say, no, he's staying at home. So we would trick him. And we would send Scotty or Murray with the scouts out the gate. Then he was happy. Then he would follow. And then when he was dawdling along the road and not looking, Scott would hide behind a rock or a tree. And then Chizi would look up, and all he had with him was the scout. Then he would be scared to be alone in the bush on his own, so he would follow the scout, and Scott would run home. When Chizi became 9 months old, our little tiny baby had turned into a 600-pound baby. He was still a baby, but he was huge, like this. So he could no longer live in our house, and he then had to live in the bush. He still gets looked after by the scouts, but he doesn't come back into our garden anymore because he could hurt the kids just by playing. The next challenge now is for him to be reintroduced into the wild so he can become a wild rhino, and that's what we're doing at the moment. And if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, you can ask Colin or the kids or me. So thanks for coming, and please feel free to ask anything you'd like to know.
First, we have a question from Fiona for Colin.
Why do you think Chizi's mother left him?
Hi, Fiona. A very good question. When a mother rhino has a baby calf, she hides that calf for several weeks, okay? And the mother will leave the calf all by itself in the bush while the mother goes away to feed. But she'll always come back and find the calf where she left it. Now, what we think happened, we're not 100% sure why the mother and the calf got separated, but that's what happened. What we think is that when we followed the spoor of the baby rhino after we found it, we found that it had followed a white rhino bull. So what we think happened was that the white rhino bull walked very close to where our little black rhino calf was hiding, and the baby rhino thought, Chizi thought that was its mother. So it followed that rhino bull for a long way, thinking it was its mom, and trying to get some milk from it. And unfortunately, it got lost in the process. So that's how that baby rhino got separated from its mom.
Next, we have a question for Jackie from Carly.
What's harder to draw, people or animals?
I think that animals are much harder to draw. I think a lot of the time, because we don't see animals every day, so we might see our own cats or dogs, and we see lots of other people, but to see like a rhino or an elephant or a giraffe, you've got to go either to the zoo or into the bush to see it. So I would say, yeah, that animals are harder to draw.
And a question for Jack from Maddie.
Is everything in the book true, or did you just make stuff up?
That's an excellent question. Everything from the book is true. It's based on a true story. It's also a touching story, and nothing's made up.
A question for Scott from Tommy.
Does Chizi recognize you?
Yes, he does.
A question for Chrissy from another Chrissy.
Did Chizi ever poo in the house? Who cleans up after Chizi? Yes, he did when he was younger, but he peed in the house more. He pooed in the house.
Who cleaned it up?
Mom cleaned it up.
Ruby and Danny. Ruby. Okay. And let's go to trash. Oh, Ruby and Danny. There they are.
Ruby and Danny have a question for Murray.
Did Chizi chew on things like shoes and chairs when he was a baby? Yes.
What did you chew on? Tell me it's on your finger.
And sucked on fingers. Were you scared of having a rhino in your house?
I wasn't scared, but I did get frustrated because the kids would play in the mud with him and cover him in mud, and then they would let him in the house and he would come and rub himself all over the furniture, and that made me mad.
Jonah has a question for all the kids.
Does Chizi snore in his sleep? What noises does he make to communicate? Yes, he does snore. He grumbles. And he makes a sound. The sound he makes to communicate is
Okay.
It's for Colin.
Does Chizi have his horn now? How sharp is it? Does Chizi bite?
Hi. Yes, Chizi has a horn. And with little rhinos like this, their horn grows about half an inch every single month. So when we first got him, he had no horn at all. But now he's a year old, so his horn is about 12 centimeters. So what's that? About 6 or 7 inches long. And he can certainly bite. If you put your hand in his mouth, he's got a good set of teeth in there. When we first found him, he didn't have any teeth, but they grow very quickly because they have to start learning to eat leaves and sticks very, very soon. So he's got a good set of very sharp teeth. But he won't bite unless you put your hand in his mouth accidentally.
Our last question is for Ellen.
If rhinos are endangered, what can we do to save them?
That's a terrific question. Well, one of the things you're doing right now is being here is really helping. And of course, you can get your parents to buy a book, and you can send postcards that we have over on the table there. And you can join our mailing list and get involved with organizations like Tusk and learn about different ways to get involved. But really helping to spread the word, coming to events like this, paying attention to the issues about wildlife trade. So you're really on the right path already. So enjoy the day. But please sign the postcards, buy a book, and learn as much as you can about this issue.